All right, well, good morning, everybody. This is Jomo Stewart and Miss Brittany Smart. We have a guest this morning in residence. It is Tuesday, May the 3rd, just after 8 a.m. in the a.m. And we are here for the Energy for All Alaska Task Force. This week, we are blessed to have Miss Shelly Wade and co. with Agnew Beck here to discuss with us the Fairbanks Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. If you recall, 2 weeks ago, week before last, we had Mr. Nolan Clouda with the Alaska Center for Economic Development out of UA to discuss the statewide CEDS, which is in production, has been slightly waiting on some of these regional CEDS to get completed so we can weave them. But here we have our local CEDS, which has been in production actually for over a year now and is nearing release of draft. So I would like to go ahead, if I may, and hand it over to the project manager for the local CEDS, Miss Brittany Smart, Special Assistant to Mayor Ward.
Thank you so much. Yes, as Jomo said, we have been working on updating our CEDS through this contract for over a year. The Economic Development Commission is the local ARDER, Alaska Regional Development Organization, which is responsible for the development and implementation of CEDS documents. So we contracted with Agnew Beck to develop this, and we've done a significant amount of outreach and engagement. Most of you may have attended or at least heard about our economic summit that we hosted in February. That was the first time we presented draft documents for people to, that was a compilation of what background research and initial feedback that we had heard, and we put it out for comment. So since the economic summit in February, we've been distilling that feedback and pulling together a draft document, which is looking to be released on Friday. So with that, I'd like to pass it off to Ms. Shelly Wade with Agnew Beck to go into more detail on exactly where we're at with the CEDS, what we've been up to, and what's coming up next.
Thanks so much, Brittany, and just confirming you guys can hear me okay.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. And you can see my slides, which is equally great. So thank you all for the opportunity to chat with you this morning and to share an update on the CEDS process. I did have a slide here for introductions. I think I know almost all of the folks that are gathered, and that might take a whole bunch of time to do individual introductions. So instead, if you have the ability to rename yourself to indicate your entity or organization, that would be really helpful just as a reference for us, for me, but thought we should just get right to the good stuff right away. So I'm going to go right to this slide, which Brittany did a great job of providing an overview of this already. So just as a reminder, really our advisory group, the folks that have been leading the process all along the way and providing our team with excellent recommendations and advice and responding to some of the early draft products and information is of course, the Fairbanks Economic Development Commission. So you can see those folks, both current and past members that have contributed to the success of what's happened so far. And of course, we'll continue to provide feedback through the comment period. And so you can see a little indication here of our team too, that is more than Agnew Beck, that also includes some local partners, Information Insights and RESPEC, and then Northern Economics that's helped with some of the economic impact analysis, which I'm going to talk about here towards the end of our presentation. So just a little bit of background and maybe I think a recap and just a refresher for those of you that have participated all along the way, which I think is the majority of folks that are gathered here today. Really the purpose is primarily to update the 2016 CEDS. And so this is an effort that is part of a typical economic development administration process. And so they have a set of guidelines and kind of a sequencing of typically how CEDS are developed and updated. And so we are at that point. So the 2016 CEDS has, for all intents and purposes, expired. And so we're going through this robust process, which is typically happens every 5 years, of updating the full CEDS. So a lot of opportunity. And I know some of you provided some input on the challenges and also what was positive as a part of that 2016 process. So just a reminder again of what is a CEDS. So this is a little snapshot again. I think, again, Brittany covered this in part, which is this is really about locally driven, which includes, of course, Fairbanks North Star Borough partners and your friends surrounding you. So that means other boroughs and communities and regions that are close to the Fairbanks North Star Borough, both on the road system and not, which of course includes some of our TCC region friends. This is really about, regionally driven economic development and creating a roadmap that helps to guide all of you, and that includes public sector partners, private sector partners, and your nonprofit partners, and really strategizing and developing very discrete and specific action items towards your success. So first of all, what is your big vision? And then how do you want to get there? So what projects, very specifically, what projects and recommendations do you have for doing all those things that are in those blue boxes? So that's, of course, retaining and expanding local businesses. That's also, about creating more and better paying jobs, and then improving quality of life. And I think kind of that last box on the far right there is the ultimate of the CEDS, which is really about increasing resilience to any potential changes or big shocks to the economic resiliency of the Fairbanks North Star Borough and the interior. So that could be things like, of course, a global pandemic or others that really impact, or a war that can impact cost and impact supply chains and other things that are critical to economic success.
So Miss Wade, if I may.
Yeah. Go for it.
So searching for the website this morning, I went on Agnew Beck's website and I saw that you were the contractor for the TCC CEDS.
Yeah.
Perhaps later you can let us know when appropriate. Kind of when was that done? And as far as your thoughts at this moment, how well they dovetail.
Yeah, I can talk about that right now, Jomo, just in short, which is that process began last spring, and we wrapped things up in January. So that the TCC CEDS, and as Brenda was mentioning earlier before we got kicked off here, she participated in that process and contributed recommendations and thoughts. But the TCC CEDS and economic recovery plan, so we were the contractor for both of those components. And then if you go 5 years ago, we also helped develop the TCC CEDS 5 years ago. So it was a great opportunity and honor to work with a region again and do that update process. So that is now available and it's on the TCC website. So if you do something as simple, I believe, as Google TCC CEDS, you will find that. And I think there's a lot of alignment with energy related projects, with broadband related projects, with definitely kind of growing your own, so growing local workforce, also supporting local control over resources. So I think there's a lot of alignment, and we definitely have had this opportunity, working with all of you and our Fairbanks North Star Borough stakeholders and partners, and thinking simultaneously as we were developing the TCC CEDS. So would be happy to do like a deeper dive in that if and when that makes sense, but would definitely encourage all of you to check out the TCC CEDS.
Thank
and
you.
This actually, I think, yeah, sure thing, Jomo, and it does align really well with, I think, Nolan's presentation. If his presentation was similar to what I saw that he presented to the Economic Development Commission that last week, that there is in this opportunity of developing CEDS across the state, there's this opportunity to look at alignments, that are statewide. So statewide, what are our big priorities for economic resiliency as a state? And there's a lot of overlap, I think, between different regions, and certainly between the TCC broader region and the Fairbanks North Star Borough.
We just had a comment in the chat box that says we're all in this together and the interior is stronger when we all have our goals aligned. So that's great words. And just so everyone knows, the TCC CEDS link has been put in the chat box.
Yeah, thank you so much for throwing that in there. And I should have had the foresight to do that in one of these slides and mention that. But yeah, and I will just also share, since we're on this topic, and then take us back to the Fairbanks North Star Borough CEDS. But I think it's really relevant that our team has also worked on the St. Paul Island CEDS. So if you go out to the Aleutian Pribilofs and then other CEDS in the state. And so I think there is a lot of momentum and support and energy for developing these CEDS that look really different and have a different character than CEDS used to. And what I mean by that is having, and I did mention this to the EDC too, is those very clear projects and action items with key leads, and then all the information that you need to know to be successful about the potential resources that are needed to make that and support that project. And then certainly what kind of economic impact will those projects have. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how this process has been so different, and I'll credit to the borough and having the foresight and thinking with our team about how we can identify projects and then actually talk about potential jobs, potential revenue to the region, and impact that way. So great beginning and great start, and I really appreciate the energy and the questions. So just a little bit about the kind of overall process and timeline. So this schedule, which we've been sharing since the beginning, has been modified a little bit as things have shifted as they naturally do, but mostly we've been on track with this schedule, dating, as Jomo mentioned, dating back to last April to today, to really wrapping up and finalizing the CEDS and this summer. So we are here at that place, as Brittany mentioned, where we are releasing the public review draft this week. So the CEDS is currently really in the hands of the EDC and the borough to do a review before we do that public release, but that's happening later this week. So that's very exciting, and just a little bit more of a deep dive on that. Public review goes out this Friday, and then there's over a month of public comment period. So we really wanted to provide folks with that opportunity, and we'll talk a little bit more about the outreach that's intended for that during that public comment period. We won't lay dormant. We will definitely be actively seeking comments from the community. And then you can see here a final draft that incorporates all public comments anticipated for the 20th of June. And then that assembly adoption, and Brittany was talking about this a little bit before we officially got started, that we're looking at, I believe a July potential assembly adoption, which is pretty exciting to have gone through this really super robust process and be able to have a final document and adopt a document within just a little over a year's time frame. And I would just, I think I saw Jomo's comment earlier, like folks want to throw stuff in the chat or certainly come off mute and ask questions, would definitely welcome you to do that. So just a little bit about the engagement activities and how we got to this place with the draft, and what you'll see that gets released on what you'll see today that we're sharing as some initial results for the energy sector, but also what has gone into that full draft. So all of those roundtables that you can see there, we've had direct dialogues with key leaders in each of these sectors and industries, and really great conversations to identify potential priorities. And also along the way was, of course, identifying those challenges or barriers to economic development, and also those things that are strengths or potential opportunities. So those conversations helped us get there, as well as community events where we had an informal setting where we had booths set up and the opportunity to engage with all kinds of folks from the community, all ages, different backgrounds, a lot of military families that stopped by our booth, which was great. That was really primarily last summer. And then certainly we had an opportunity to engage youth during that time as well. And then folks, you can see the many other engagements that we've had, including, of course, with the Economic Development Commission, and then our other municipal partners with the city of Fairbanks and city of North Pole, and the big event, which was the Interior Alaska Economic Summit. And so I believe some of you participated in that event. So all of these together have been really critical, as well as a very deep review of the many plans and background documents that exist for the borough. So whether that's a sector specific type of document or something broader like the borough comprehensive plan, we have considered all of those documents as a part of this process.
I will say that was a great event, and I don't recall the Interior Alaska Economic Summit. Really great event, and I don't recall anything like that ever happening with previous CEDS.
Yeah, thank you, Jomo. And I wanted to very much give credit to FEDC. So to you, Jomo, and your team for participating and helping to facilitate and coordinate that event, as well as some of the roundtables. So I think that's been a very critical part of our success so far, is working in partnership with FEDC and many of the other friends, the sector leaders, and of course the EDC, and doing the right kind of outreach. And so it was very exciting to do the summit, twofold, because we had an opportunity to do a deep dive with everyone, and it was an in-person event. So the chance to go and create connections and networks, and directly following, there were things that were happening that were implementable actions. And so it was very exciting to see that energy and really be able to use that as a place for really ground truthing what we were coming up with in terms of some of those preliminary recommendations.
And to interrupt real quick on the summit, CEDS are 5-year documents, but they are required to go through 1-year annual reviews in order to see what have we accomplished, what's still relevant, what is new, what do we need to add, that kind of stuff. And so we were potentially thinking of hosting the Economic Summit on an annual basis. And we did put that question out to the summit participants to see if they were interested in that. And we did get a resounding yes, that would be a beneficial thing for us to do. So we're already keeping that in mind, knowing that we do have to do these annual updates anyway, and start hosting an event where all these economic groups can come together and we can make sure that we're all on the same page on strategies moving forward.
And that would be something great for the community to habituate into.
Yeah.
Coming together for goal setting.
Yeah, I will just, I will second and third and fourth that really strongly, because we're doing just again, so we're applying some of our lessons learned by working with, I didn't mention that we're also working with the Yukon-Kuskokwim region on their comprehensive economic development strategy. We've done that for multiple years now. And one of the keys to the success of their CEDS is definitely this gathering. So they had done, I think, 2 or 3 gatherings in person before the pandemic. And then we've done 2 versions virtually, super successful. They now have kind of stood up working groups that are, transportation focused or energy focused, or, in the case in the YK, subsistence focused. So those have been definitely, I feel like that is a best practice to, and if that's leveraging existing groups like this or doing something different, but having that energy all in the same space where the cross-sector conversations can happen. So you're not siloed into your energy discussion or siloed into your ag discussion. You're talking with other partners and looking at how there's alignment between different sectors and how you can work together to get to be successful. I'm just checking the chat here to make sure.
Yeah, and I wanted to respond to Brenda. Brenda, we absolutely will keep them included. We did make it an Interior Alaska Economic Summit intentionally, and we did invite our neighbor partners, and we actually did have representatives from some of our neighbor communities come and participate. Most notably, the economic development person from Denali Borough was there. We had some farmers from Delta, some of that kind of stuff. So we hope as we move forward that, and as it becomes an annual event and more in line with people's calendars, that we get more neighboring community involvement. But yes, that is a very specific goal that we want to push towards. So thank you for the comment.
Yeah, great comment. And thanks for the reminder, Brittany, in terms of, just how participatory it was. And really, it was very exciting that someone drove up from the Denali Borough to participate, drove in from Delta. Bryce came in from Delta. I've known Bryce for a long time, a farmer there, and he, came in just to participate in the agriculture, session, the breakout. So yeah, a lot of energy and excitement for these gatherings and an opportunity to talk with other partners and stakeholders. Okay, so before I talk about draft recommendations, I did want to just take a step back. So as I'm, thinking through this and having this great conversation with you folks this morning, I'm reminded that one of the key pieces, there's not a slide to this end. We have included in previous presentations a slide that says, one of the key, again, unique qualities of this particular CEDS is this, how it's been designed really is that you as an energy partner, an energy sector leader, or any other sector will have in essence what we're calling, they were one pagers, we're expanding those because there's so much rich content, but to get to the point quicker, there is a piece that you can take away out of the CEDS as an energy sector leader that will say very specifically, here is what we understand and know about our challenges and opportunities and as an energy sector to economic resiliency. Here's what we have proposed as our goals, our strategies, our actions, and then the related action plans. And I'm going to share some of those results with you today. But how is this impactful and effective for you and useful for you as a sector leader? You have that direct takeaway, and that will be the front end of the CEDS. So up close and personal immediately is those sector, SWOT analysis and, that are sector specific, and those very specific goals, strategies, and action plans. And I would be remiss in not saying it's very important indicators that say where we're at today and where we want to be in 5 years. So how are we going to measure our success? And I'm going to give you a closer look at those action plans and some of those one pagers, and including the draft goals and recommendations. But I think it's really important for you folks to understand that this is not a traditional kind of long document in terms of all that background is still there. And so all the context, including all of the, demographic and economic data that sets the stage for, tells the story, the economic story of Fairbanks North Star Borough. That is all still there, but up front and very different are these very, dialed in sector specific pieces that you can take away as a sector leader, as a partner. You're having these conversations with investors, with funders, with, funding agencies. This is, I think, particularly important given the just immense opportunity with legislation. So we have the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. We have, of course, previously ARPA and others that were, funding opportunities that we would not have known existed. But what this document does is provide those clear strategies and a list of capital projects. So what are our projects as a borough? So that's more quickly and clearly communicated to funding agencies. So I hope that that's helpful for you in knowing and that there is a usefulness to this that I don't think typically a document like this or CEDS have included, and that is really our ultimate goal, is to make it useful for you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about recommendations. And I'm going to start with this big picture recommendation, which is an economic vision. And it says revised economic vision because we did have a draft vision that we worked with the Economic Development Commission to develop that was really, again, developed primarily from all of the input that we had received leading up to the summit. Then we went to the summit and shared that draft vision with all of the partners and got a lot of great input and have revised it to read as such. So looking, certainly would welcome your feedback on this now or during the public comment period, but this is where we've landed as a place that really makes this vision very specific to the Fairbanks North Star Borough and the interior, but also, provides that, long vision, long-term goal, or very aspiring view of where you want to be. And so I'm just checking the chat to make sure I've got.
You're good.
Okay.
Oh, Roger, you had a question.
One thing that I know, transportation is one of the key means of gaining access to resources and for development and trails. I know that's one thing that you didn't have listed in your sector roundtable tables, but that might be something for you to consider as an important part of the economic development of any area.
Ms. Wade?
Yeah, thank you so much for the comment. So we have had conversations with transportation leaders, and definitely had transportation leader participation at the summit. And there is what is not reflected in that list of roundtables is there's actually a fuller list of topics that the CEDS covers. And I would definitely be happy to share kind of a table of contents with you that includes a very specific chapter that will cover land use, housing, and infrastructure, including transportation considerations. So what are the priorities that we need to focus on that are either land use related or housing related, or infrastructure, including transportation projects that would make for successful economic development, or really support sectors in their priority projects and strategies. So we have definitely prioritized that, and that is a consideration and included as a part of the CEDS. Any other questions before we move on?
No, please, let's go ahead and move in. Let's
Okay.
take a little bite. Because again, I believe you just said you're going to focus on the energy component, obviously, because this is the Energy for All Asset Task Force. But again, it's a robust document touching on the vast majority of economic indicators and things around our community and region.
Yeah, so and to that end, thanks, Jomo. And to that end, I am going to share with you some broader goals that are energy focused. And so if you could just imagine that for each of the sectors, that there is a chapter or this takeaway piece for each of those industries or sectors that I mentioned, including land use, housing, and transportation. I'm going to touch on the goals, kind of recommendations, proposed goals, and then also proposed strategies, and then give you a sneak peek at the 5 related to the 5 strategies, the actions. I want to just raise a flag that there's a lot of detail here and it's dense. Why? Because it's a complex topic and there's a lot that we need to communicate and share within the context of the CEDS. So recognizing that, definitely still want to encourage, if you have feedback today, we want to hear it, but also really strongly encourage you to take the deep dive with the document once it's released on Friday. So with that, let's take a peek. These are our proposed energy goals. So these are, the big picture, long-term improvements or changes that we want to see in 5 years or more. So those are really, primarily in 2 broader buckets right now. So, the first of which is, where do we want to be in 5 years? The interior will have access to low-cost energy through its diversified, sustainable, reliable energy portfolio, aspiring big picture. And then that second is Interior Alaska will be a hub for piloting innovative solutions to unique cold climate energy challenges. So those are 2 broader buckets of energy goals. And again, in the interest of time, I will continue to cruise through here, but definitely welcome any stops or suggestions or questions that you have, but wanted to be able to at least give you the highlights so that you are fully prepared and know what to expect when the draft is released on Friday. So under those 2 big buckets or of goals are these 5 proposed energy strategies. And so you can see we have labeled those initially in sort of 5 categories to help the reader, to help you folks really guide your consumption of what's being presented here. And, you know, are we off track? Are we on track? What's missing? Will be some of the questions we'll have for you. But you can see the broader buckets of, you know, natural gas, really, you know, innovation and research related to that, a resilient power grid, certainly thinking about and planning for renewables, and then collaboration. I will just say that a collaboration strategy, we could just say that across the entirety of the CEDS as a big priority. But you can see some of the how we've thought about taking those big goals and making them more specific to focus on really these, you know, primary 5 areas of specifically how will we make progress toward reaching those broader goals. So here are some of the proposed strategies. And so I, again, won't go through these and read them individually, and I'll just offer these to you and certainly welcome and encourage your feedback, and want to instead switch gears and talk about the details under each of these, you know, 5 umbrellas of strategies. The details are absolutely critical in thinking about the success and the opportunity and really the feasibility of being able to do any of these. So those action plans, before I go into that detail, I should just mention that we had one-on-one interviews with, I think, many of you, and have had these dialogues to help best understand what actions, including very specific projects, will position the borough, Interior Alaska, for success, whether that's energy or any other sector. And so I want to thank all of you in advance for your participation, because the detail, including you pointing us to the right references to create that detail, has been really critical in developing these action plans. So let's take a closer look at those. First, just so you folks know that the action plans that will be included in the upcoming release will look something like this, in which we really break down each of the strategies into, you know, a clear action plan that says what specifically will we do to achieve this strategy. So we include, you know, is it a capital project? You know, is it something that has a, you know, infrastructure facility component? And then what is that specific near-term action that an organization or businesses or partners can work together towards? Who is a potential lead for that action? And then who are all those supporting partners? And that list can be, you know, pretty deep, because it does require, you know, collaboration across entities and organizations. And then sort of the idea of an estimated cost to implement the step over the next 5 years. And then some idea of the timeline for completion. So you can see that breakdown here for this specific action. This is just an example. There are many actions that look like this that are components of the action plans. And I'm going to share those with you. But again, keep in mind that it's a lot of detail for a quick conversation like today, and would be very, very excited to get a lot more feedback from you during the public comment period. So these are listed really one by one in terms of those 5 buckets of strategies. And again, I'm giving you the sneak peek today. Definitely welcome you to jump in and let us know if you see anything that's missing right away or you have questions. But this is just an idea, again, of what the potential actions would be to be able to do the expand natural gas strategy. And so here's ideas like funding the borough's oil to gas conversion program, you know, final design and construction of Titan 2, the phase 2 IGU build out, and the others that you see listed here. Did I hear a question?
Yeah, one thing that might be listed, maybe a little bit too much in the future, but is atomic energy, small, out at Allison, they're doing a project there. And many communities could use that. I don't know how cheap it's gonna be, but it's a source of energy that is clean and if properly managed will may have a future as far as providing energy.
Yeah, I was listening to a legislative hearing yesterday. I want to say it was on the renewable portfolio standards. And they were doing a word change from renewable to, there was something else just to make sure that it included nuclear, which isn't considered
good.
renewable. But that's fine. Again, we'll be submitting comments. But this is neat.
Clean
So
energy.
structurally-
Clean energy, Jomo.
That's right. It was
the word.
clean.
Right.
That's right. Okay, thanks, Lou. I see you're watching the same committee. So structurally, Ms. Wade, again, you just showed the action list, an example of things on the action list. Structurally, how does this all fit together?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, yes, Mr. Solly.
are you moving past expand natural gas slide to a procedural one, or are you still on this one? I'm sorry if you already moved past it.
No, we're actually still on this one. If you have a comment or question, sir.
Well, I have a comment. What's missing? Natural gas source. This is all about building out infrastructure. And it's predicated on, it seems to me, a reliable, lower cost energy source. And I'm concerned about what's going on in the Cook Inlet with exploration or the lack of, and that basin in general. And so, I think calling into question the expansion is, are we going to have natural gas source that's going to support conversion, support the expansion, support all these things? So I guess I'm kind of wondering, maybe that's missing. Right now, I think you've got some LNG being trucked into the borough from Fort Nelson for the purposes of the IGU under contract. So we should be asking the question of gas source.
Thank you. Thanks, Rick. No, I appreciate that comment, and likely we have a reference to that as some of the background and the context related to this particular strategy, but appreciate that as something that we should potentially consider as an immediate action item. And to the question, Jomo, about how it all fits together, can we get to that after we hit on our, okay, so that will be some of our broader punchline, but definitely want to make sure that we give folks the opportunity to kind of take a look, immediate reaction, recognize we have 5 of these slides. Here's 1 of 5. Here's number 2. So on energy innovation. And so I just, again, also want to say, you don't have an immediate comment or you need more time. Absolutely. We have like more than a 30-day comment period right around the corner. But here's a quick overview related to the energy innovation topic. So again, you can see some of those ideas related to, projects. And I think almost all of these, I was going to go through the task of tagging them as which of these are capital projects. And I think of all of these sectors and industry action plans that the energy action plans have like the most number of capital projects that are lined out right now. So almost a majority of these are capital project related or could be a capital project. So I'll let you absorb that for a moment and then ask the question again of what is missing as you're doing that just initial reaction to this preliminary list.
Well, this is Brent Sheets. I know Department of Energy has a big push on value added uses for coal, not necessarily for fuel, but they're, in terms of energy, there is a lot that can be done with coal too. And that is going back to Rick's, I thought, very good point, energy security for the interior, which is supply. So I wouldn't mind seeing you expand energy innovation to include some of the more traditional things like what else can you do with coal, especially if we're going to try to phase out the coal plants. I mean, that's quite an economic hit to our neighbors in Healy.
Thank you, Brent. Yeah, great point. Other suggestions or recommendations for energy innovation?
Yes, the floor is open, so please know you can take yourself off mute if you have any questions, comments.
I am going to keep us moving, but absolutely appreciate you're seeing this for the first time. And so again, I'll just reiterate, there's a full public comment period coming your way to provide some additional input. So moving on to our really overarching strategy, resilient power grid. And so this gives you that sneak peek again at some preliminary strategies or actions rather, related to that, and who some of those key partners as potential leads would be for these action items. So asking you that question again, folks, of anything that jumps out immediately as missing from this list.
Mr. Burgraff has his hand up.
Yeah, one other thing that I may have missed it is hydroelectric. Yeah, a lot of work was done on trying to develop hydroelectric energy, and so far that's happened. But that is one very, it's expensive to develop, but it can provide low-cost energy, clean energy. So that's something to consider.
Actually, as an overarching question, where would something like a large-scale hydro, say a Susitna Dam, would it have a place within this regional plan, or would it be outside the scope?
It could, the Fairbanks North Star Borough and Interior Partners support a hydro project. Why you likely don't see a strategy like that or an action like that listed is it did not surface in our review of energy data, information, likely candidates, those things that others have identified in other research as a potential feasible, likely option. But certainly welcome those comments. And if that's something that we need to do a deeper dive on and better understand the potential there, then that today is a great day, as well as during the public comment period, to share those ideas.
Okay. Again, I would open up the floor. This is for us, gang. Okay. Well, again, just be reminded as we move through, if you have questions or comments, you may. Mr. Burgraff.
Well, one thing, mining could play a lot more big role in Alaska, in the interior. We're currently having problems getting access to the Amber region, and there's a resource up there. If we had cheap enough power, we could go ahead and process some of the ore from that and come up with a product which would have more value. One of the problems we've had in Alaska is like with the zinc up at Red Dog, is we're exporting resources which have to be further refined, and that could provide jobs for us if we had cheap enough power to process the ore that's developed.
Something tells me more value added has a place within this CEDS. more local value added.
Right.
I'm thinking we're going to find it when we go through the full document.
Yeah, sure.
And we do have a mining section.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So Ms. Wade, I see you've switched forward to plan for renewables, and it looks like there's a nice comfortable spot in C for a whole range of things. Okay,
And-
so that's again, another reminder to ourselves. Again, we probably give it a nice good read through first before we start just, well, give it a good read through, then we have a universal view to start making our comments.
Yeah, and any comment right now is a great comment and feedback.
So-
So your initial, yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Mr. Stoley, please.
Mr. Chairman, another question. We're on the renewable slide.
Yes, sir.
So Shelly, in this case, support for wind farms in interior Alaska, and I'm a director of Golden Valley. I'm not representing them in my comments here now, but
Mhm.
clearly wind energy has value to users in the borough, but it needs to be economically priced to make sense. And because there's wind projects that don't make sense and cost the members of our co-op a lot of money. So I'm wondering about including economically priced or something about that. How do you include that part in these kind of open dreams slides?
Yeah, this is such a great question. So the open dreams should be checked and can be checked by doing an actual economic impact analysis. And this is sort of a nice segue into the next portion of what I wanted to share with folks. So we do have one slide after this, but there's an opportunity. So what do we know about the feasibility? And I think how you're phrasing it really eloquently, economically priced, opportunity, what's really feasible and doable and sustainable, that there is an opportunity to do further analysis if we lift some of these and prioritize them and do additional work to understand economic impact and what it takes, just revenue wise and other supporting factors to make it a successful, feasible project. So we certainly haven't done a super deep analysis on each of these, but there is an opportunity to do that on a subset of these projects. So I do think, however, supporting wind farms, as I read this myself, like there's an opportunity to further define that. So I think we could just qualify that even in terms of how this action is phrased. But we do, as I'm mentioning and want to share with you briefly, we're doing an economic impact analysis to understand kind of feasibility and the potential of some of these other projects.
And Shelly, to
Okay.
respond to Rick in terms of potentially jumping ahead, one of the things that Shelly mentioned is indicators and metrics. So getting some feedback on what a good target on a cost per kilowatt hour, like what should we be shooting for? We have also heard that even knowing energy is high, keeping the right stable versus the variability of energy costs in general. Most of those comments are related to natural gas and oil, but it does impact the cost per kilowatt hour. So helping us identify those targets in terms of what a goal is helps us define those further and helps put those checks in place. So making that comment in terms of helping keep that in mind when you're reviewing the document and helping us provide feedback.
Yeah.
And I'd like to share that, just we can get to that punchline quicker, share what those indicators look like. So the folks that were at the summit saw those one-pagers and what we had identified preliminarily as where we are today and where we want to be in 5 years with indicators. We don't have that on the slide. That's actually missing from today's slide presentation. I want to share that with you, and I will here just momentarily. The final slide is this collaboration one. And so I wanted to not totally breeze past this, but at least share this on the screen as the different ways in which multiple partners are working together, both in planning and implementation of energy related projects. So some of those, at least through this draft currently, those emerging actions are listed here, including the crossover that naturally is happening with some of our other sectors, including those what we're calling kind of community influencers or supportive foundational projects or strategies that are education workforce development related. So you can see some of these actions related to really the work and collaboration that needs to happen among interior Alaska energy stakeholders, including your friends in in the TCC region. So because the question has come up, I thought I would do a quick switch here and share with you what is in, at least in this early draft, just so you have in front of you and you have a sense of like how things are all put together. I am going to share with you folks something that's not out for public comment yet, but here is the table of contents that gives you an idea of how this is all organized. So hopefully you can see table of contents on your screen right now.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So I'm also being mindful of the time and want to make sure that I do share that economic impact analysis piece with you just briefly, because there is an energy related project that's already gone through that process. So here is kind of the table of contents. Here's this early stuff in the background. And what we are talking about is moving these 2 chapters to the end. So we really elevate these kind of snapshots by sector. I'm going right to the energy one. We're also doing some reworking of how this is all organized, but just a sneak peek for you folks right now, a SWOT related to energy. And then I wanted to hit on this. And, Brittany mentioned something that we don't really have articulated here is this, and this is, again, early draft. So cost per kilowatt hour or other measures of success or indicators that need to tell us, how we're improving or making progress on our goals. So what are those clear indicators or measures of success? What do we know today? And what do we know that can be measured to help us understand whether or not we're being successful in 5 years? So this is currently how this is structured, and this is coming your way, this Friday. So definitely would welcome any feedback that you have initially, but this is certainly, a really key part is the measures of success. And we want to be clear in each sector what that looks like. And so annually or regularly, you're coming back together. Brittany mentioned the annual updates that you're coming back together and checking in on those measures of success. Where are we? How are we doing towards lowering the cost of energy or any of those related types of indicators?
So say like a concrete one would be, we mentioned earlier, say EV charging stations, of which we have 2 now here in the community. So say we go to, from 2 to 10, would be a clear indicator. So is that kind of what you mean?
I would call that more of an output. And so that for me is like, you've got more charging stations, but then so what? To what end? So what have those done for you? And so we're looking for something that's more kind of outcomes based, that gives us like a real indicator that we've decreased the cost of energy. We've done something to measurably impact, how efficient and effective energy. And so how that's getting delivered to stakeholders, how that's supporting industry in other ways. So I think it's a good kind of output measure, but we're looking for something that's going to tell us, like the indicators I shared earlier, in terms of, how really we're decreasing the cost of energy per household, or really increasing the portfolio, and it's the value added stuff. So in some way, how we could articulate that in an indicator would also be of great value. So I'm being, again, mindful of our time, and I know we have a little bit of flexibility, but I'm coming back to our slides because I did want to talk just briefly about the economic impact modeling, and then certainly just remind you all of our schedule, and would welcome you to get in touch with Brittany and I directly with any questions. But the whole economic impact modeling process is really about taking, projects in which we really have an estimated, project spending on labor, materials, and services, and really then assessing the impact of that project on the region, including, indirect and induced impacts on jobs, income, and business sales. So really, how is that going to create economic resiliency and benefit to the community? And so that information is definitely helpful in terms of making decisions for residents, for policymakers, and how funders and investors can better know that the investment that they're making with their grant dollars or otherwise is really going to have some kind of a benefit, and that there's an estimated positive to a project. So far, we've actually done that analysis early in our CEDS process, did that analysis on 3 projects, including phase 2 of the interior gas utilities natural gas build out. And so those are on our project website. So you can check that out immediately in terms of like what has been estimated in terms of job creation and really economic benefit to the Fairbanks or Scarborough and to the interior. Same with those other 2 projects that you have listed there. But we want to do that with a next suite of projects from the CEDS, but we need some criteria to help us get there. This is a quick sneak peek at some of the questions that we're asking about which projects should rise to the top and go through this analysis early on so we can better understand economic impact. One of our key questions will be, do we have enough information about the project to put it through this modeling process, such as project costs? And then you can see some of the other related questions that we're asking. And certainly, we have a very specific scope and budget constraints within our scope of work. And we will be looking at a specific suite of projects, maybe up, 3 to 5 projects at the most, but this type of analysis can be done on projects that really meet these criteria. So moving forward, here's a few examples of potential projects that might go through this economic impact analysis process, especially after we hear from folks through the public comment process. Which of these has the most information that can further inform our process, and really that could be those projects that you can immediately take to a funding entity and start to move the needle on getting that project supported. So this is just a quick overview, including you can see the Titan natural gas plant expansion and rail spur extension as one of the projects that I shared earlier on the energy list. And then, the question for you all as we move forward through the public comment period is, what other projects should we consider? Which of those energy projects is really primed and sort of ready to go, that we can look at it, further analyze it, and be able to use that information to further the funding and support of the project. So happy to take any questions that you have about that, but otherwise just wanted to remind folks of our timeline, that, really exciting release of the draft this Friday, and that public comment period that's through June 10th. And then you can see, as mentioned earlier, the finalizing and that adoption that is likely to happen in July.
And I'd like to take a moment to speak on how we're going to share the public comments that we received. So we do have a tracking sheet that we are going to note the source of the comments. Thank you, Lou, for joining us. The source of the comments, who made the comments, what they're relevant, where they fit, and then what our resolution is, like incorporated or, whatever that tracking is. And then we'll include that as an appendices to the final draft. So you'll be able to see what feedback we got and how we built it into the final draft. So that'll be part of it.
Actually, before too many other people drop off, if we could just have a note on how one might submit comment. I did pull up I found that website. It was a little challenging actually to pull it up. So folks might want to take a picture of that www.FNSB. Oh, but that's actually pretty easy. FNSBCEDS.com. So there's the link on that website to submit public comment.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And we'll have specifically, it's not there yet because we've not publicly released the draft, but we will identify very clearly on the project website, but also on the draft itself, how you can submit comments. And so that will be sort of the usual things of, you could submit a comment through the website, you can submit a comment to Brittany or I directly, you could call us, any number of ways in which you can provide comments. So we'll be very clear about that, including the deadline for the public comment period. But Yeah, we're very excited and really look forward to your deeper review and reflection and additional feedback. We really appreciate the comments shared today as some initial thoughts on how we can improve this draft.
Okay.
Any other feedback?
Well, I would open up the floor. I will say, again, I've had the opportunity to, actually, I've had the opportunity to watch this process. I've had the opportunity to participate in this process in a way that I never remember being able to do before. And so it really, again, it's been I can attest that it's been a robust and inclusive process. And so I do want to thank, again, I want to give praise to you, Ms. Smart. I want to give praise to you, Ms. Wade, and your team at Agnew Beck. Again, everybody, please know, I believe that the target was to have it be able to be released by Friday. Okay.
Yes.
And you can know that FEDC, we'll be pushing out the links. I'm sure, I don't want to speak for my friends at the chamber, but I have high confidence that they will also be pushing it out as well. So again, so we can get this as out into everyone's eyes, hands, so they can give it a read and have the chance to give their public feedback, because in the end, this is our community and regional document and action plan. So it's very important that everyone participate. Ms. Smart.
I guess just final comments, when in talking with Shelly with this last week, this has been one of the most engaged CEDS processes she has experienced, and I'm going to speak for you at the moment because that just made me feel so good. And the amount of documentation and feedback that we got, we initially wanted to make this very visually appealing with a lot of icons. The feedback we got made this so dense that we're still struggling a little bit with how we can present it in an easy to read manner. So any feedback to that extent would be extremely helpful. But just thank you so much for the amount of feedback that we have gotten thus far. And please, again, continue to engage with us all the way through the process. And then once it's adopted, we're not done, folks. Then we got to get to work. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also really excited about the partnership we have with Nolan Clauda to make sure that he is heavily relying on the work that we've done over the last year to help inform the state CEDS. And I think that's a really great partnership. So rather than duplicate efforts or potentially having conflicting information, we are partnering and relying on the work that we have done to help feed that process there as well. So get broader state engagement on some of the larger projects that we might have.
Excellent. And I guess finally, and everyone online already knows this, FEDC will be available if anyone wants to come together. Again, folks can do it on their own, but if anyone, like say industry groups or subgroups, interested parties want a space where they can have coffee brought to them and copies made as they go through that process to review and structure their comments. If they want to do them in groups, of course, FEDC will make space available, and we buy our coffee bulk. Well, all right, everybody. The last slide, please know, again, you can email Ms. Smart, you can email Ms. Wade, you can go through the FNSB CEDS website, again, all to provide your comments and feedback. Well, thanks a million, everybody. Again, Ms. Wade, thank you so much for making yourself available to us. We've been waiting for this announcement, and so thank you so much for making us part of the rollout. All right, everybody. Well, I will be honest, I don't really have anything lined up for next week, so I'll be looking around. If you have any recommendations or anything you'd like more information on, of course, do let me know. I'll reach out. Otherwise, again, I'll be doing reach outs this week, see what we can who we can rope in for us for next week. But all right, for now, everybody, hope you had a great morning. Have a great rest of your day. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.